Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. The news is going from bad to worse for Matt Gaetz. Donald Trump's Attorney General nominee appears to be losing Senate support instead of gaining it. And even though Gaetz is no longer a member of the House, there is precedent, as lawmakers are discovering, for releasing the Ethics Committee report into his alleged sex with underage girls. More on that in a moment. First, Gaetz' biggest problem is that he is despised politically and personally. Here is Fox News Republican analyst Karl Rove.
You talk about an unpopular member of the Republican Party in the Congress of the United States. It's him, and it's not because he's disliked so much by Democrats. It's that he's disliked by Republicans. So he's unlikely to get confirmed. All it takes is 4 members of the Republican membership in the Senate to say no to him. And I can count like 10 or 12 already that are expressing doubts or saying they're opposed. So maybe then the president makes a recess appointment in which he gets to serve in the job for 2 years. But again, you're right. The guy has never been a practicing attorney with a steady practice. He's never prosecuted. He's never managed or run a law firm. And he's going to run the largest law firm in the world? I don't think so.
If he were to become Attorney General, even through a recess appointment, Gaetz would get access to the prosecution files on him. The Department of Justice considered charging Gaetz for sex trafficking and obstruction of justice before deciding not to indict him. Gaetz has held that decision up as proof he did nothing wrong. But a separate House ethics investigation into Gaetz has reportedly disgusted his former colleagues in the House. And Gaetz resigned from the House last week to try and block the report's public release. His argument is that since the House no longer has jurisdiction over him, the report cannot be released. But in fact, there is precedent for the House and Senate ethics committees to release findings after a member has resigned in scandal. And that point was just made on ABC News.
There's Representative Eric Massa, where the committee kept investigating him for sexually inappropriate behavior after he resigned from Congress. And the Senate Ethics Committee also publicly released its report into Senator John Ensign days after his resignation. And that was even forwarded to the DOJ. So while we keep talking about this Gaetz report possibly being leaked, could it just be released under the right amount of pressure?
The answer is yes. Here is Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota on CNN.
Well, first of all, this has happened a number of times with a Republican senator when he left for the good of the public. The report was released, and a Democrat in the House of Representatives once left, and the report was released after. So that's not true. These reports have been released.
So there is precedent to releasing the Gaetz report. And now that Gaetz has been nominated to be Attorney General, wouldn't that report be helpful to members of the Senate who are evaluating Gaetz' fitness for office? I mean, I get the argument that if Gaetz was seeking to return to private life, maybe he should be left alone. But he has been nominated and has accepted the nomination to run the U.S. Justice Department. He has never prosecuted a case in his life. He's never been a judge. He's never run an organization larger than his 15-person congressional office. And yet he's expected to be able to waltz in as the head of the Justice Department without the information collected on him by his own House colleagues? And by the way, a growing number of senators are demanding that the Gaetz report be released.
I think there should not be any limitation on the Senate Judiciary Committee's investigation, including whatever the House Ethics Committee has generated.
So you want to see it?
Absolutely.
What we want to do is make good decisions based upon all the relevant facts and information that we can get.
The Trump transition team seems to know that releasing the Gaetz report would likely inflame the opposition against the Attorney General nomination. So House Speaker Mike Johnson, who seems to be tasked with doing much of Trump's dirty work on Capitol Hill, even if it requires twisting logic into a pretzel, has come out against making the report public.
To request, I'm going to strongly request the Ethics Committee not issue the report, because that is not the way we do things in the House, and I think that would be a terrible precedent.
Releasing the Gaetz report would be a terrible precedent to set. How about the precedent of having a statutory rapist serve as Attorney General? Several women have testified to the House Ethics Committee, and their lawyer is speaking out. Quote, "My client testified to the House Ethics Committee that she witnessed Matt Gaetz having sex with a minor," Florida Attorney Joel Leppard told ABC News. "Democracy demands transparency. Release the Gaetz ethics report." Attorney Leppard gave a few more details to Politico. His clients, he said, told investigators they attended more than 5 and as many as 10 sex parties with Gaetz between the summer of 2017 and the end of 2018 during his first term in the House. At those parties, they testified there were group sex situations and illegal drugs were present. One of Leopard's clients told investigators she witnessed Gaetz having sex with her friend who was underage at the time against what she recalled as some sort of game table, according to Leopard. Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz may think that none of this should stop Gaetz from becoming Attorney General. After all, Gaetz has been steadfast in his loyalty to Donald Trump, the only thing that Trump really seems to care about. Plus, Gaetz has reportedly promised that if confirmed, he will burn down the Justice Department as Donald Trump has requested. Reforming and rebuilding the Justice Department may be worthy of some Senate debate, but Matt Gaetz is a waste of Senate time. If Republican senators have any self-respect, they will tell the Trump transition team that Gaetz doesn't have the votes, won't get close, and will never be allowed to serve as Attorney General through a recess appointment or regular confirmation vote. If Donald Trump wants to thumb his nose at government agencies and deliver a big FU to government institutions, so be it. But Matt Gaetz is arguably beyond a clown, with no Justice Department or management experience. He also seems to be a moral degenerate, and even Republicans in the U.S. Senate seem to have had enough, at least with Matt Gaetz. By the way, Donald Trump's cabinet picks are creating growing instability in the U.S. financial markets and on Wall Street, and that has some Trump-supporting CEOs experiencing what you could describe as buyer's remorse.
The shift in tone from, wow, we're going to have a great economy, to all of these things and I don't have to worry, to, okay, maybe now I have to worry, was like in the blink of an eye.
That is CNBC anchor Andrew Ross Sorkin describing Wall Street Trump supporters melting down.
So many of them had, frankly, a big grin on their face about where the markets were going, what they thought was going to happen, deregulation, the economy, and all of that.
And then came another shocking cabinet nomination, this time Matt Gaetz to run the Justice Department.
When it first came across the phone, there were people, including, by the way, myself, but who thought it was a parody account.
And that's because Matt Gaetz seemingly defies law enforcement, whereas the markets rely on clear law enforcement and stability.
When it comes to the Justice Department, what this is ultimately going to look like, what prosecutions are going to look like, I think that threw a lot of people back on their feet.
It is my last political post, okay? I'm going to lay it to rest. Let me just tell you guys, I'm not crying happy tears. I always talked about how my family, sorry, I don't want to make this more than once. I always talked about how my family had different beliefs, my grandma and my mom and my sister, and how we always got along. And I wore my grandma's sweater to go low, and I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to cry, okay? But my heart's broken.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube, one of the most popular is from Updated, who wrote, "When will the idiots realize that the main reason he ran was to avoid spending the rest of his life in prison?" Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about the news for Matt Gaetz going from bad to worse. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.